we are going to explore a curious problem. And I'm calling it the real problem, I think, of our age is the recovery of Platonism. It's a very strange search because it constitutes, in fact, a lost treasure that takes an explanation. The way Plato is taught today in all of the universities is that it does not entertain nor teach the notion that it is a spiritual discipline. Plato is a Platonic yoga. Magnificent, structured, progressive, descriptive, and psychologically profound. Now, when Carl Jung did this work called Psychology and Alchemy, which is a real fine work, and he did this 1953. Let me just make sure. Yeah, 1953, Psychology and Alchemy. Now, the reason I call it strange is because the work we're going to look at in Psychology and Alchemy, Carl Jung describes it and gives the title of it, The Treatise of Platonic Tetralogies, Sets of Four. He also gives the Latin source name for it, the Libra Platonis Quatorium. Obviously, there's nothing obscure about its source. It's Plato. Now, what I find rather interesting is that when Carl Jung is going to show us how to understand this Platonic tetralogies, he doesn't go into Plato, he goes into alchemy. And he doesn't just go into alchemy, he goes into Hermetic thought, which is a early philosophical movement that flourished at the time of around the first 2, 3, 4 centuries of our era, and came back into Europe at around, in strength, at 495, because Ficino's great translations from the Platonic school in Florence, the first one he translated was the work on Hermetic philosophy in 1495. After that, he translated Plato and many of the great Greek classics and a great number. Until into the 1500s, Europe for the first time had Plato in Latin translation. Before that, there was no Plato in Europe to speak of. A few dialogues badly translated or in parts, but for the first time we can speak of the Platonic tradition entering Europe begins in the 1500s. That's 16th century. The first English translations, the whole thing, had to await until 1805 and on. So that in English, we've had Plato for only half as long as we've had Shakespeare. But let's go on. Now first, I would like to spend a few minutes on this work called the Platonic Tetralogies, which is on page 250. Which is on page 250 in Carl Jung's Psychology and Alchemy. Now, I represented this work. It's really sets of four, and I just left out the alchemical terms for simplicity. Now, what is this? Now, I passed around for you a copy of that page that sets out these tetralogies. Now, when anybody looks at this, they have to decipher it. It has to be deciphered. Well, I'm going to decipher it for you. But on the pages that you have in front of you, you have Carl Jung's understanding of it. And he has some quotes from the source, which is the Platonic tetralogies. Now, let us just put this aside for a while and talk about something else. All right, I'm going to move away from this. I'm going to talk about Plato. In Plato's Republic, there are two paramount ideas that are expanded in order to talk about the spiritual evolution of man. The first is called the divided line. And the second is called the great allegory of the cave and the upper world. Now, anybody who gets into Plato and Plato's Republic has to deal with these two together, since this is a pictorial and allegorical way of understanding the divided line. So I'm going to ignore the way in which you can understand it allegorically, and I'm just going to look at what is called the divided line. Now, Plato is interested in representing in one model the whole process, the whole structure, a whole way of understanding the entire spiritual development of man. And he puts it very clearly in the 6th book at about 510, the Stephanus number, very famous line. And I'd like to just read you first why he goes into this curious thing called the divided line. It's so beautiful, I think I may get lost in it and not come out of it for a while. So I'll have to skip a bit. So I'm in the tail end of this, and this is where he picks up, and I'm going to the conclusion out of which comes this divided line. The sun provides not only the power of being seen for things seen, but, as I think you will agree, also their generation, growth, nurture, although it is not itself generation. Of course not. Similarly, with things known, you will agree that the good is not only the cause of their being known, but the cause that knowledge exists and the state of knowledge. Although the good is not itself a state of knowledge, but something transcending far beyond it in dignity and power. Oh Lord, what a devil of a hyperbola, says Glaucon. It's all your fault for compelling me to say what I think about it. Oh, please don't stop. At least do finish the comparison with the sun